Hey everybody. I don't know about you, but for me, 2020 has felt like just a big bucket of grief at times. Just one loss after another with police violence and the loss already of so many of our freedoms going back now for months. And it's like, we try to get over one thing, but before we can, something else happens. And I tell you, the loss of Chadwick Boseman, I know has affected a lot of people. And on the one hand, it seemed like, he represented a fictional character in several movies. But I truly believe that his representation of Black Panther was bigger than life. And it meant so much for the African American community and for the Black community worldwide, for him to have that representation of complexity, of compassion, yet being a warrior who had a sense of humor, who can be bold yet thoughtful and intentional. And he just embodied a lot of what it meant to be a person of African descent and all that complexity. And it meant so much to see him on the screen. And there may be people who are wondering, like, well, I didn't know this dude. We never met. But it's the symbolism of him. And it was the symbolism that he brought to the screen that was so incredibly meaningful. And so it's a loss. It is a loss like any other loss. And it's understandable that people would be feeling sad and would be feeling tremendous grief. And I wanted to encourage people to acknowledge that grief, because one thing that's clear to me in our society is that we don't do grief. We run from it. There are, I know, West African cultures that designate an entire year for grief and have rituals and things that are done to acknowledge loss. But somehow in our society, we expect to just experience loss and somehow move on as quickly as possible. And it's always fascinating to me that we do that. And so months after someone has lost a loved one, they may start crying and ask, or say, like, I don't know what's wrong with me, or I don't know where that came from. It came from a place of grief and loss. And that's okay. We have to first acknowledge that. And in the spirit of Brother Boseman, we have to acknowledge all the wonderful things that he did and his humanity in our society. That's important, really important for us to be able to do. And when it comes to our grief, because this conversation came up recently for me in the past week, distraction is okay. So doing something to get your mind off of the loss, if it's just so overwhelming that you feel like you can't really deal with it in the moment. I know last night I put on Power Project. I was curious about that movie and I said, I can't do this right now. And so I turned on Netflix and watched another movie so that I could just give myself some time and some space. And we have to do that for ourselves on occasion. But then recognize that when we're ready, it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to think about, the legacy that he leaves behind. It's okay to think about his wife and the family that's left behind. It's okay to do that. But if we got to distract ourselves for a little while, let's do that. I watched Winter Soldier just last week. I'm a fan. For those of you who don't know, Winter Soldier is the first movie that Chadwick Boseman showed up in as the Black Panther. So, Captain America, Winter Soldier. So, do what you can, do what you need to do. If you need to distract yourself, go outside, talk to somebody, watch some TV for a couple hours or a few days. Avoid social media because his memory, understandably, and the recognition of him is plastered all over social media right now. Put your phones down. That's okay. But then when you're ready, acknowledge what that loss is and what it means for you. And not even just for Chadwick Boseman or Black Panther, but for all of the losses that we've been experiencing for months now, and really starting at the beginning of 2020. We have had tremendous loss. And I know for a lot of people, it's starting to wear on you. And it's okay to take time and acknowledge that loss and do what you can for yourself. Reach out to someone. Feel free to acknowledge here in the comments, like what things you've been doing, to either honor the memory of the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, what you've been doing for yourself to manage the many losses that many of us have experienced over the course of this year. Thanks, you guys. Take care. Be great.